This is the next announcement by Echo Base Radio Blastland. Listen now to Chapter 7 of Season 2 of Blastland. This chapter is called Race Against the Sunset. Watch out for new Blastland podcasts at Spotify.
Thorn drove the car at maximum speed, his hands going numb from gripping the steering wheel so tightly. He had no intention of stopping or slowing down. Any delay would extend his journey, and he might not make it to the city before sunset. At night, the pneumatic gates would close, and entry into the city would only be possible after dawn. As evening approached, Thorn arrived at the first checkpoint at the city's entrance. Armed men approached him, their weapons trained on him, and they had only one question. Why did Thorn want to enter the city? Thorn explained that this was the city of his childhood, and that he wanted to find any relatives or friends who might have survived. Satisfied with his answer, they allowed him to pass. The second checkpoint was more serious, located close to the pneumatic gates. While pedestrians could enter the city without hindrance, vehicles required a special permit. This permit could be obtained either in the city or at the central laboratory. All armored vehicles used by the residents of Vault 33 were equipped with such permits. Furthermore, having a permit issued by the central laboratory allowed passage into the city without a prior inspection. The only risk was that the permit might have been revoked. Thorn understood that if this had happened, they would try to detain and arrest him immediately. This was not part of Thorn's plan, so he pulled his backpack containing a deadly virus closer and watched the armed men's actions intently. The events unfolded so quickly that the residents of the Vault 33 overlooked the need to revoke Thorn's permit. They were certain that Thorn would wait out the night in a secluded spot and only head towards the nearest major city in the morning, or perhaps even after a few days. But they were wrong, and this was their first serious miscalculation. Thorn's heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst from his chest. Those were the longest minutes of his life. He didn't take his eyes off the armed men, trying to catch every detail. After what felt like an eternity, the armed men returned Thorn's permit and granted him entry into the city. In his anxiety, Thorn nearly dropped the permit, but he managed to compose himself just in time. Slowly, he drove into the city, and after putting some distance between himself and the gates, he stopped the car. His body began to tremble, the physical manifestation of the intense stress he had just endured. Thorn knew that this symptom usually disappeared on its own after sufficient rest and a change of environment. He needed to find a place to rest and sleep. As the streets grew increasingly empty, Thorn drove to the nearest house and knocked on the door. The occupants, already preparing for bed, didn't open right away. When they finally did, Thorn asked if they could suggest a place for him to stay the night. The people offered him shelter in their home. Thorn made his way to a bed and quickly fell into a deep sleep.
This podcast was made available by Echo Base Radio Blastland. Watch out for next podcasts at Spotify. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And stay safe.